What's good, YouTube? This is Temptation here, coming at you with a new claw guide. I asked my community some time ago what they wanted to see more of, and one of the things that got a lot of votes was how to play claw, but for Fortnite. My first claw video, which thank you to everybody that's watched it at the time of recording this video, is seeing over 130,000 views. In there I included some Call of Duty gameplay and some little bit of chat about Call of Duty specifically. But in this one, we're going to talk mainly Fortnite. The core fundamentals of how to play claw will remain the same, but we will be including controller layout that I would recommend, some practice to put in order to prepare you to play public matches, and then just a few different clips playing pubs with hand cam so you could see exactly what it would look like live playing claw. So first things first, fundamentals of claw. You're going to use your right thumb. You're going to put it in the middle of the right analog stick. You're going to use your right index finger. You're going to put it in the middle of the face buttons. Once you have these two things done, you just wrap the rest of the hand around the controller. It should look like this, very light in the hand. You can see that my middle finger can easily press the rear button, so your R2 or your right trigger. And you can also press the R1 or the right bumper very easily as well. It's going to be very light in the back of the fingers here, and more towards the tips of my fingers here in the rear. So it should look like this. So it's as simple as it is. Let's go over it one more time. Right thumb, middle of the right joy, right index in the middle of the pad, in the middle of the face buttons. Then you just wrap the rest of the hand around it. So allow you to easily hit R1 or your right bumper with your index finger and hit the R2 or right trigger with your middle finger. You should be able to easily reach every face button, no problem, including the touchpad if you're using a DualShock 4. This will work for a DualShock layout. It will also work for an Xbox layout. Same concept. Same fundamentals, you can see. Same thing. So we'll work on either controller. Some people have asked previously about pain. I don't experience any pain, but that's because I'm doing it what I would consider the right way. If you are coming traditionally, playing traditionally, you would have played here in the middle of your hand and played like this. If you just go from this position to try to claw, you really can't do it. It's very difficult to do. It's gonna hurt. You get the pain here in the bottom of your wrist, and this hurts as well. You have to be more rotated. I'm over exaggerating here, but more rotated with your right hand, more on top of the controller. And by doing these simple steps that I showed you before, you'll get the proper rotation down. You'll be less in the middle of the palm and more towards the bottom part here of your palm instead of in the middle of your hand. That's it. It's as simple as it is. Also, I've gotten questions about using control freaks. If you have control freaks or stick risers like this, you can use them. That does not inhibit your ability to play claw. Doesn't matter. So if you want to use them, use them. I sometimes use them, sometimes don't. I'm in between personally. All right, so the remainder of this video, what we're going to show is some settings I'd recommend to learn how to play. Some practice that I know I personally did to get acclimated with claw and get comfortable, and I put in plenty of time on these practice maps that I'll show to get myself prepared to actually play pubs and not get frustrated by my play, and then just a few clips of playing some pubs with hand cam so you get the gist. All right, as usual, if you have any questions, comments, anything at all, please drop them in the video, and like, subscribe, and comment for more. Stay tuned for the rest of the video. Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's get into the section of the video that we're going to discuss settings. We'll talk a little bit about the controller settings that I'd recommend, or at least the ones that I've been using that I personally find success with, especially when playing claw. I think they're pretty easy to use personally, and this has been somewhat updated because the last time I really played Fortnite was middle of chapter 2, I believe. So it's been quite some time since the new season has started. It's chapter 1, season 1, I believe, or sorry, chapter 4, season 1 at this point. So it's been some time since I've played, and I know the running mechanic has kind of come out since I've played last, so I had to tweak my keybind just a little bit just to get them the way I wanted to. But this will be pretty current as of chapter 4, season 1. I won't get into this video settings because that's all just preference at the end of the day. I usually play everything low. I have a 1440p monitor, so that's the resolution I'm playing in. But let's get into some of the controller settings. This is usually all preference as well, so I'm not really going to talk too much about my sensitivity. Controller auto run should be on, build immediately, so Builder Pro should be on. I put the edit times and the slide hold time all the way down. Vibration, I'm never really been a big vibration guy. Even playing Call of Duty back in the day on Xbox, I was not into vibration, so I always leave that off. Personally, for me, build mode sensitivity and edit mode sensitivity, they're slightly different. I feel like I wanted my edit mode just to be a little bit faster, so these are the ones that I'm currently playing at, which are 1.8 for build mode and 2.0 for edit mode. Use advanced options, yes. My vertical and horizontal speeds are the same. They match at 40%. Boosts I don't play with. Ramp time I don't play with. An instant boost while building is on. I have a lower ADS look speed than some. This is just personal preference. So 8% for both the vertical and horizontal. I don't use any boost or ramping any there at all there. Dampening time I don't use that. I play linear. Personally, the dead zones, that's all preference. It's based upon your controller whether or not you get stick drift. My controller really don't get much at all. I know on the left stick I don't, on the right very, very tiny amount, which is why it's only at 7%. Let's get into the important things. So this is my controller layout. This is how I personally play. I do play custom. It's based off, I guess, Builder Pro, but the main things that have really changed here, for the most part, is default. The main things that I've changed here is putting edit on my left thumbstick, circle being just switch mode. It's not switch mode and edit, it's just switch mode. And the center touchpad, since I'm playing on a DualShock 4, I have made the sprint button and moved my map over to the right analog stick, or the right D-pad, as you can see here. So those are like mainly the biggest changes that I made. Other than that, everything else is default. So how to shoot, how to change weapons, checking your inventory, placing markers, emotes, reload, pickaxe, switch mode, jump, crouch, all of that stays the same. So again, the biggest things that I change, I personally put sprint here on the middle touchpad, which by default I think it's on the left. I made edit its own key and put that on the left thumbstick, and I moved the map to the right directional pad. And that holds true for all of these other things here. So that's it. Relatively default, which is a couple of little tweaks that I personally enjoy. This has allowed me to play claw with pretty relative ease, in my opinion. So if you want to give this a try, especially new to learning claw, feel free. But at the end of the day, you do what's best for you and what works best for you. You know, whenever you make tweaks like this, you're going to get used to something. You got to put it into practice. You've got to really jump into the creative and just grind out what your new controller settings would be. Again, these are the ones that work for me, but please feel free to use them or use what you feel most comfortable with. So the next part of the video, we're going to get into practice, what I'd recommend. I'll do some voiceover on some gameplay and talk a little bit about why I chose the maps that I did and what my process was when I was first learning to play Claw 2 years ago from the day of making this video. Alright, stay tuned. Alright, so this was the very first thing I did when I started learning to play Claw. The crank simulator, one of the most popular things that people tend to warm up on. You can see the code at the top there if you need it, but it's in the infinite crank simulator. So really what I would do here is just practice fundamentals. I would make sure when I pick up my controller, I would put my right thumb in the middle of the right joystick, put the right index finger in the middle of the face buttons, and wrap the rest of my hand around. And just got comfortable with that position, and then just focused on the simple mechanics, just putting pieces down on the level. Nothing crazy, just making ramps, just making, walls, trying to make little edits, simple stuff. I was not great at building to begin with, so for me, I didn't feel like I was starting far behind, but I needed to get comfortable playing Claw. And for me, the biggest struggle was jumping. Having to reach for the X, because obviously you're doing that with your index finger now. And for years, I was doing it with my thumb. I played traditional for 20 plus years, so it was a big change. So jumping took a while. Switch mode on the circle button for the DualShock took a little bit to get used to. So those are the things that I needed to really focus most on. So As I continue to do this day over day, I'd start my day off with this, like I said before, for about 15-20 minutes alone just on this. And then I would just try to get better and better and better and more comfortable at it. You know, turning ramps into 90s, as you can see me doing in the video. Focusing on throwing cones and trying to edit through them and continuing a ramp upward, making platforms, so on and so forth. So I'd spend a lot of my time just doing this in the very beginning. And some days I would just do this for a half an hour and then get off of the day. Then maybe I'd come back a couple hours later, do it again, get off. So I really didn't jump into pubs in the very beginning. I did mainly just this stuff, just to get comfortable with the transition. And then eventually I started working my way into another creative map, which is the Realistic Edits V2, which the next clip is coming up. That'll show a little bit about that if you don't know much about it. It's another Tito map. So this is the Realistic Edit map. This is, I guess, V4. The code is at the top too of it if you want to see it and download it if you've never played it. But this has so many different options, as you can see walking around here. A lot of different edit options, a lot of different build options. I usually would start with the stair and wall one here. Just simple, few quick edits, and then a kill, and it runs like that through the rest of the layout. So I usually start here and then go over to another thing that I wanted to play for the moment. But again, this was just getting comfortable doing editing on claw instead of having it bound to another key or having it bound to a back paddle button. So just focusing on getting edits in, and then a transition to something like this. Again, more editing, just editing several walls, stairs, getting your kill and continuing on, and kind of like this maze type of layout. So I'd spend some time doing these as well. Again, continuing the edits. And trust me, in the very beginning, I was very slow doing this, and trust me, I'm still not perfect. Like, I miss edits all the time. I'm not a Fortnite player. I even miss shots, as you can see there. But yeah, I would just do more of this. Again, focusing on efficiency of just getting it right, and then the speed came along with the better practice and just focusing on the fundamentals. And then once I was done doing something like this, I'd go into something that was more building, because this is where it tends to get harder. Editing is probably a bit easier moving a claw. Building is probably what gets a little bit more complex, mainly just because of having to switch your fingers around for several buttons. So doing something like drop wall retakes or the Mongrel Classic, having to smash out the wall and throw a new one in and edit through it, or reset it, edit. There's a lot of commands going on, and you can do them obviously in claw. You can see me working hard there with my fingers there, trying to do it and do it right. Obviously messing up here and there too. So for me, this was probably the biggest challenge, is being able to hit my switch mode button, smash something out with the pickaxe, throw down a piece, edit it, shoot, sometimes close it back up, reset it. It took a while, but again, I put in a lot of time into these practices. I would always start with the crank simulator. I'd go to this map after. My total practice would be at least a half an hour a day. Again, I did not touch pubs, arena, nothing for several days. And then after I started to get more comfortable, it started to come second nature, and I knew that right when I picked up my controller, that I would pick it up in a claw formation. Then I knew I was getting very comfortable with what I was doing. And then I started to work my way into playing pubs, and eventually started playing arena. So we'll wrap up this clip here on the practice. So those are my recommendations, is those two maps. That's what I personally did. And now we'll include some gameplay.